Hey everyone, it's Elaine. I'm back again with another video. In this video, I wanted to discuss something that is super important and I think it needs to be talked about more, and that is narcissism or narcissistic personality disorder in religion or um, in religious leadership. Okay, so narcissistic personality disorder is a hot topic right now. We hear it, oh, that person's narcissistic, oh, they're egotistical, they're selfish, like all these things, right? And it's becoming more known and being brought to light. So I figured I would, talk about narcissistic personality disorder or narcissism and connect it to religious cults, religious leaders that are teaching congregations. Okay. And the effects of narcissism, if you're directly, if you've grown up in an environment where there's high narcissism, or you are, um, you grow up in a religious environment where the leaders in that church have narcissistic personality disorder or have high traits of narcissism, you're going to be affected by it. Sometimes it'll play out in low self-esteem, it'll play out in anxiety, it'll play out in the inability to speak up for yourself, to set boundaries, to be vocal about your needs. It can play out in a lot of ways. It's not just, narcissism doesn't just exist, in relationships. It can exist in a religious system. So I'm gonna go off of um the DSM, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. I have the book with me, but I'm just going to pull it up on my screen and we can have a conversation about it. I mean, you guys aren't interacting with me right now, but by watching this, I think you will be very, very, very enlightened as to what this may look like. And you can kind of decipher for yourself if the church that you've grown up in, or if the church that environment that you are currently in exhibits these traits, or if the religious leader that you are preaching, or that you are praying to or collaborating with, not even collaborating with, I'm sorry, that you are exchanging, energy with, has these traits. So let me go ahead and let me see here, share my screen with you guys. Alrighty. Okay, here it is. Narcissistic personality disorder, diagnostic and clinical challenges. So this is all the criteria um, that someone has to have in order to have narcissistic personality disorder. It's a pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior, need for admiration and lack of empathy, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts, as indicated by 5 or more of the following. So in order to have narcissistic personality disorder, you have to have at least 5 of the criteria from the book in order to be diagnosed with NPD. If, you have some traits of narcissism, on here, you notice it in your church or the church that you grew up in, it could still have detrimental health effects on that person, or the congregation. But it could play out and manifest differently for a lot of people, the symptoms, people being affected by it. So let's just go over some of these that I've noticed in the church that I grew up in, especially in a lot of leaders, a lot of religious leaders in the Iglesia Ni Cristo. So one is shows arrogant, haughty behaviors and attitudes. I've come across a lot of ministers with this type of, because I'm a minister, I know better than you, and you're just a young 17-year-old Filipina girl. Why are you even questioning me? Why are you even questioning the church? Type of arrogant behavior. Another one is lacks empathy, is unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. And you can fake empathy. People can fake empathy. So a genuine empathy is like a genuine, like you're curious about that person's experience because you can identify with that person's emotions, right? And you can tend to those person's emotions and really have a tuned in ear to that person's experience. So a lot of the times in the Gluttony Crystal, a lot of the men in the church aren't going to really have that stance. I mean, they can probably empathize with you, but most of them display this like sense of power, the sense of why are you even questioning me? Why would I even empathize with you? You're just, you know, this young girl type of, or young boy. Why are you even questioning this scripture? And not take into account your experience, your lived experience. Is interpersonally exploitative, takes advantage of others to achieve his or her own ends, whether that be through monetary means or a sense of emotional control, so they can feel powerful and they can feel like, I'm better than you type of deal going on. And you can see that in a lot of religious leaders, a lot of religious leadership, and it's not talked about enough. I feel like a lot of narcissism or people that have been diagnosed or not diagnosed with NPD are in churches preaching and slowly, insidiously causing harm. Has a sense of entitlement, unreasonable expectation of especially favorable treatment, or automatic compliance with his or her expectations. So I think you can sit on that and kind of just figure out what that looks like if you've experienced it with leadership in your church, or in the religion that you grew up in and the church that you grew up in. Requires excessive admiration, and these symptoms are super sneaky, right? You can especially in a church, because in a church, um you're kind of taught to, especially in a high control authoritarian religious cult, these symptoms can kind of be, how do I say it, are hidden by, a religious facade. That's the best way I can describe it. Is preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. Um, this number 3 is a pretty big one. Believes that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people or institutions. And what immediately comes to mind is, some leaders in churches, you know, shunning their own blood, shunning their own family members because they're not, oh, you're not associating with me anymore, or you're going against what I'm saying. You're done, get out of my face type of deal. So like you can see that these symptoms are very, very prevalent in a lot of religious cults, a lot of high control religion. And when you're exposed to this type of behavior for years and years and years, it's very insidious. It's like smoking. It's like being someone that smokes all the time. You inhale the secondhand smoke and then you get sick. And, you know, if you're around someone that a church where the leadership displays these characteristics, it can cause mental health effects. And it's not going to be the same for every member. They're not every member is going to have these be affected by the NPD. It can manifest differently for everybody, but I know for me, it manifested in low self-esteem, an inability to voice my concerns, shunning, invalidation. And it's like a narcissistic relationships. Like say you have a boyfriend that is narcissistic or has NPD, right? Like you're going to be affected by it, just like might be affected by some of these symptoms in the religious church that you grew up in, or religious cult, I should say. So I just wanted to touch base on that because I think it's super important. Narcissistic personality disorder, if you have grown up with someone or exposed to it in a religious cult, it can cause a lot of mental health issues. It can cause a lot of somatic um, symptoms in your body, like anxiety, depression, um, nausea. The list goes on, but I'm not going to cover all the somatic health effects that someone can experience when they're, exposed to this type of behavior. Um, Something to be aware of if you guys have any questions, about narcissistic personality disorder, um, or if you're like have any other ideas that you have thought of in your head, feel free to leave them in the comments below. But yeah, NPD, someone can be narcissistic, right? And have high traits like this. And then, but to actually be diagnosed with NPD, which I think a lot of ministers, and I'm laughing because it's like, I don't mean to laugh. I'm sorry. It's not funny. But I think it's important for people to be aware of this because I think there are a lot of religious leaders that have undiagnosed NPD and they're going around preaching and, causing causing insidious harm on other people. Not to say that every minister is like this, but I feel like a high amount of ministers, because they're in a position of authority and power, can kind of sneak on by with the religious facade and the title and the role that they have. So something to think about, something to digest, something to just, have, this type of psychoeducation for yourself so you can make an informed decision of how you want to live your life and how you can take back, you know, your freedom. I hope you guys learned something new today, and I will talk to you guys in the next video. Bye.